There have been plenty of teams who have had horrible seasons throughout the history of Scottish football. Fort William were notorious for finishing on negative points on plenty of occasions. East Stirlingshire were almost guaranteed to finish bottom of the fourth tier before the playoffs came in and saw them get relegated to the Lowland League. Vale of Leithen in recent years seeing multiple relegations, but at the professional end, you don't see these sort of calamitous seasons. In the Premiership and Championship, teams that finish bottom still usually nick a few wins here and there. Even semi-professional teams in the Championship can be competitive for periods of time, but sometimes a team can get promoted and it would appear they came up by accident. This scenario happened to Brechin City, who, upon promotion to the Championship, proceeded to have a historically bad season, followed by a complete freefall out of the SPFL. So, in this video, I'll be going through how Brechin ended up in the Championship, their horrendous season, and a collapse that would see Angus lose a team from the Football League. First, a bit of history. Brechin were founded in 1906 and initially played in local leagues and cups before joining the league in 1923. Unfortunately, this is when the initial third division was brought in, which was an abject failure as many teams would go under due to financial issues, leading to the league being dissolved in 1926. The club would return to the leagues in 1929 and would finish bottom upon their return. They would never finish outside the bottom half, and in the 1937-38 season would lose 10-0 on 3 different occasions. After World War II, Brechin would play in the C Division, which is a bit of a Schrodinger's division as there were reserve teams. The league wasn't really part of the Football League. It would split into regional leagues and it was disbanded in 1955. Senior teams got put into an expanded Division 2 and reserve teams got their own league. Brechin continued to remain in the basement divisions until the 1980s, where in the 82-83 season, they beat Meadowbank Thistle to the second division title, the first time the club had earned promotion. The club would be relegated in the 86-87 season, but would win the second division again in the 89-90 season. This promotion would be followed with back-to-back relegations, seeing the club drop to the newly formed third division, which was the fourth tier, but immediately won promotion again. They would be relegated 2 seasons later. The 2000s would see the man with the bonnet, Dick Campbell, lead them to the third division title in the 2001-2002 season, and then in the following season would see promotion to the first division. Ian Campbell would take charge this season as Dick left for Partick, but the club would be relegated, amassing only 2 wins in the entire season. The club would remain in the second division for the next 11 years, where in the 2016-17 season, they would finish 4th in League 1, and in the playoffs would defeat Raith Rovers. Thanks Gary Locke and John Hughes, I really enjoyed myself that season, before beating Alloa Athletic in the final. So Brechin are very much a typical semi-professional team who sat in the bottom 2 divisions of the Football League for many years, with an occasional appearance in the second tier, where they wouldn't stay for long. Brechin were tipped for relegation straight back down, but last time they were in the division they collected 17 points, although as mentioned only got 2 wins. This is what people were expecting from this season. Finish bottom, grab a few wins along the way, prepare for life back in League 1. Oh boy, were these people hopeful.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. This is the greatest thrill of my life. I'm king of the world. Woohoo! Woohoo!
They started this season with a 4-1 loss away against Queen of the South. This would be a common occurrence. A 2-0 draw at home against Livingston in their first home game would give a little bit of hope, and after a 1-0 loss away at Dundee United, the club were sitting 8th in the league. This is as good as it would get for Brechin, as after a 4-0 loss at home against Inverness, they would drop to the bottom of the table. they would never leave this position again. They would draw their next game against Falkirk 1-1, but would then see defeat for their next 7 league games. They would beat Buckie Thistle in the Scottish Cup third round, but this would be their only win all season. A 2-2 draw at home to Dundee United would make it seem like there is some hope following these two results, but they would lose 4-0 to Inverness, 4-1 to Morton, and suffer a further 4 losses before a 1-1 draw against Morton. We were now in the first week in January, and Brechin were sitting on 4 points. They wouldn't earn another point. They would lose 2-0 to Livingston, 5-0 to Celtic, 3-1 to Queen of the South, back-to-back defeats to Falkirk, a 1-0 defeat to St Mirren, back-to-back defeats to Dumbarton, a 3-0 defeat to Dunfermline, before, on the 24th of March, Brechin would fall to a 2-0 defeat at Greenock Morton, which saw the inevitable be confirmed. Brechin were relegated from the Championship. In March, there was still 7 games left. These games would go as follows: a 3-0 loss to Falkirk, 4-0 loss to Inverness, 1-0 loss to St Mirren, 4-0 loss to Dunfermline, 5-0 loss to Dundee United, 3-0 loss to Livingston, and a 5-1 loss to Queen of the South at home to see out their season. Brechin would finish the season with a record of 0 wins, 4 draws, and 32 losses, scoring 20 and conceding 90 goals in a 36-game season. This smashed records. It tied the record for the lowest points tally in a Football League season, as Dundee also finished with 4 points in the 1898-99 season. However, that Dundee side did it in an era where a win only earned you 2 points, and Dundee won a game. Vale 11 in the 1891-92 season, their second season of the Football League's existence and 126 years prior, are the only other team to have gone a full season without winning a game. And they got more points. They got 5. So what on earth happened here? Well, it's simple really. They weren't good enough. Brechin signed 12 players, 5 from Championship clubs, 1 from League One, 3 youngsters on loan from Premiership clubs, and Carlos Lyon from a club called Grays Athletic. Grays had just been relegated from the Isthmian League Premier Division, the 7th tier of English football. Brechin are also a part-time team, but they weren't the only ones in the division, as Dumbarton were also part-time and finished 26 points ahead, although Dumbarton did also get relegated. We also need to remember that the previous season they finished 4th in League One, 31 points behind league winners Livingston and 12 points behind second place Alloa. Typically, a team in 4th doesn't win the playoffs. In later years, Queen's Park would win the playoffs despite finishing 4th and being miles behind the teams in 1st and 2nd, but as mentioned in my video about Lesser Hampden, Queen's Park had some money to play with. Brechin did not. So, Brechin have just had one of the worst seasons football has ever seen, especially at a professional level. So, what happened the following season? Well, the club had a complete refresh. 14 players would leave, while once again they brought in a few players from the Championship, Premiership loanees, some players from League 1 and 2, a striker from Upper Annandale in the South of Scotland League, Tier 6 in the Scottish Football Pyramid, but quality-wise isn't really that level, another striker from Leek Town, who were playing in the Evo Stick League 1st Division South, the 8th tier of English football, and a defensive midfielder from AS Serbia in Italy, who play somewhere in Italy's regional leagues but were part of an Italian reality show called Campione El Sogno in the early 2000s. So did this lead to success, or at the very least, stability? Yes, for a bit anyway. After 9 games, they had 3 wins, 4 draws and 2 defeats, seeing them up in 4th. They would lose their next 3 games, but a 4-0 win against local rivals Forfar would see them 5th, a third of the way through the season. It was all downhill from here. A 5-1 loss against their other local rivals Arbroath would start a 6-game losing run, seeing them drop to 9th. January, February and March would see a run of 10 games with only 2 defeats and 5 wins, would see the club rise up to 7th, but would lose 5 and draw 2 of their last 7, seeing them drop to the bottom of the table, confirming back-to-back relegations following a 1-1 draw with Stedalspear in what was a relegation deciding game, as a win would have seen them leapfrog their opponents and finish 9th instead. Stedalspear got relegated through the playoffs anyway. So Brechin are now in League 2, the 4th tier of Scottish football and the bottom of the SPFL. They hadn't been in this division for a while and things had changed since the last time they were this low in the pyramid. Since the 2014-15 season, whoever finished bottom would end up in a playoff against either the winners of the Highland League or the Lowland League. Perennial bottom feeders East Stirlingshire had already dropped out of the league, and Berwick had dropped out the season before, and with Kelty Hearts and Brora Rangers eyeing up a spot in the playoffs, and looking likely to beat whoever did finish bottom of the division, it was imperative then that Brechin avoid the playoffs. Well, they did exactly that, but not through on-the-pitch performances. Brechin once again had a completely new squad, with players coming in from loan from Premiership and Championship clubs, 3 signings from League 1 and 2 and some non-league teams, none from England this time, but we did have a player join from Stirling Macedonia of the National Premier League Western Australia, Llanelli Town of the Cymru South, and NK Novi Grad of the Croatian Regional Leagues. So, did this squad refresh bring success and stability? No. Brechin would start off with 3 defeats before beating Albion 1-0 at Clifton Hill. They would lose their next 3, beat Elgin 2-1 at home, before not winning again for another 7 games, where they got back-to-back wins against Stirling and Cowden Beef. Would this be the start of a revival in fortunes? They wouldn't win another game this season. Brechin were destined for the playoffs and almost certain relegation, but some scientists in a lab in Wuhan, China decided to put an end to it all, and in mid-March, the season was ended early due to the COVID pandemic, meaning there was no playoffs. Brechin were probably the only side who saw this as good news, seeing they had amassed 17 points in 26 games, giving them only 0.63 points per game. Actually, no, Reef won League 1 ahead of Falkirk, didn't they? There's another team that was actually happy about the early cancellation. Oh well, I'm sure it won't take Falkirk long to win League 1 anyway. So COVID has given Brechin a second chance at League 2. Brechin would rebuild their squad once again, but with the only foreign signing being Przemysław Nawrocki from Warta Sieradziejo of the Polish third tier. The format would be changed for this season. Teams would play each other twice before going into a split, where once again they would play those in the same split twice. A bit like the Premiership, but instead of 38 games in the Premiership, there would only be 22 games. The season started off with the League Cup group stages as usual, where Brechin would lose 6-2 to Dundee United, 7-0 to St Johnstone and 3-1 to Peterhead. Not an ideal start, but loads of teams in a higher division. The league is what really matters. They lost 5-1 to Edinburgh City on the opening day. Their third game of the season saw a 2-0 win over Albion Rovers, which would see them go above the bottom of the table. For the only time that season, Brechin would not win for another 15 games. They got 3 draws in that run. They would beat Cowden Beef 2-0, but would lose to Annan, draw with Albion and lose to Stenhousemuir to finish the season bottom with 10 points from 22 games. To compare to last season, that's 0.45 points per game. But they still have a chance to remain in the division. The playoffs don't guarantee relegation. Cowden Beef were in a similar freefall, but beat East Kilbride and Cove Rangers. Fellow Angus side Montrose beat Brora Rangers. There was still a chance Brechin would stay up and retain their league status. Kelty beat Brora 6-1 on aggregate to set up a tie with Brechin to decide on who would get that final SPFL place. Kelty won the first leg 2-1 at home before winning 1-0 in Brechin, ending the Hedgemen's 92-year stay in the Football League. So Brechin have gone from the 2nd tier to the 5th tier in 4 seasons, and would have been 3 seasons if not for a worldwide pandemic. After the joys of being promoted to the Championship, they now find themselves in the Highland League. This was despite the fact the Lowland League claimed they were initially pressured to accept them should they have been relegated in 2020. COVID Ball actually deserves a deep dive, doesn't it? Anyway, Brechin would finally find success and stability in the Highland League. Craig Levine would join the club as an advisor and would finish 3rd in their first season. Their second season would see a final game showdown with Buckie see Brechin win the league and have a chance of returning to the Football League, but would be defeated on penalties by Spartans, who went on to defeat Albion Rovers and earn promotion. Last season saw Brechin lose out on the title to Buckie, this time on goal difference, and we wouldn't know how Buckie would fare in the playoffs as they didn't compete due to not having the required SFA licence. I attempted to explain this situation at the time in this video. This season, Brechin are once again fighting for the Highland League title, this time against Brora and Banks of Dee. If you're wondering, Buckie at the time of writing are down in 9th. I wonder who I predicted to win the Highland League. Anyway, Brechin seem to have recovered from what was possibly the worst 5-year period seen by a team in the Football League. Will they be promoted back to League 2 anytime soon? Well, first they have to win the Highland League, which seems likely, but then there's the issue of having to play the Lowland League winners, who for this season anyway, it seems likely it will be East Kilbride, who I see defeating Brechin over 2 legs. Thankfully, in this era, there is the ability to return to the Football League following relegation, but that is yet to happen. But if any club were to do it, Brechin are probably the best placed side to do so. That's all for this video, and of course I hope you enjoyed. Unless you're a Brechin fan, then I am so sorry for reminding you of this. I'm not, I'm still bitter about that relegation. Do you see Brechin returning to the SPFL anytime soon? What was the worst team you have ever seen? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. The usual requests of liking, sharing and subscribing are all appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.